colaborando con este formato con satisfacción creciente, se puede decir de alguna manera, y con acierto notable cada una de las iniciativas. Este año nos toca un ciclo en torno al tema actores del cambio en el Mediterráneo. Hará una presentación más detallada y más fundamentada el presidente del Imar en Florencia, a quien doy la bienvenida con todo el cariño, igual que a los ponentes y a todos ustedes. Entonces serán 6 sesiones, habrá ponentes de 6 países diferentes y creo que en estas 6 sesiones sobre actores del cambio mediterráneo tienen un denominador común que es la esperanza. Lo que en la elección de los ponentes destaca, al final cuando trata de buscar qué tienen en común estas 6 personas, estos 6 intervinientes, es motivos para esperanza. Y el ponente de hoy es un buen ejemplo. La presentación la hará el moderador con más detalle y también será influenza, pero nuestro ponente, que trabaja y crea en un país complejo, como es Líbano, es curioso porque probablemente es el país árabe más querido en España. O sea, si hiciéramos una encuesta, es muy probable que encabezara la encuesta de países árabes con los que sentimos vitalmente vinculados a través del Mediterráneo, probablemente sería Líbano. Cuando tuve la fortuna de pisar Beirut y pisar Baalbek, por ejemplo, tenía una emoción que no he sentido en otros lugares del Mediterráneo de manera tan intensa. Entonces, pero eso no obsta para que sea efectivamente en la actualidad un país complejo, con vecinos, por decirlo de alguna manera, peculiares, especialmente en el sur. Y bien, no insisto en el tema, pero ya imaginan ustedes lo que quiero decir. Y en este contexto, pues, nuestro ponente de hoy ha tenido el coraje, la constancia, la imaginación, el esfuerzo y la dosis de esperanza necesarias para llevar a cabo la iniciativa de la que hoy nos ilustrará. Y eso además me encanta porque tiene un componente de ejemplaridad. O sea, nuestro viejo supremacismo europeo, que a veces tiende a mirar a la ribera sur del Mediterráneo con cierta condescendencia, pues me haría muy bien en tomar ejemplo de cómo alguien en condiciones quizás no especialmente fáciles, como son las del contexto en el que trabaja y crea y tal buen empleo y a creación de riqueza en su país, quizá nuestros colegas del norte no sean tan capaces de hacerlo como están siendo capaces ustedes en Líbano. En todo caso, gracias por estar aquí y gracias al IEMET una vez más por la iniciativa y por poder colaborar juntos, IEMET Club de Roma, con la colaboración de la Fundación La Caixa. Gracias al moderador, verán que es uno de los mejores moderadores que podíamos encontrar en Barcelona por su sensibilidad mediterránea y pluricultural, y gracias a todos ustedes por su asistencia. Gracias.
Muy buena tarde a todos, buenas tardes. Bueno, una vez más, un año más, nos reunimos para continuar este ciclo. La verdad es que es una satisfacción siempre colaborar con Jaume Lanaspa, con la oficina del Club de Roma aquí en Barcelona. Y yo creo que efectivamente, ¿no? Ha sido una serie de ciclos, de reflexiones, de conferencias que nos han ayudado a todos a ir creando a lo largo de los años pues esa conciencia de la gravedad de las cosas que llevamos entre manos y que por tan cotidianas no les damos importancia cuando se nos están, digamos, mejorando o empeorando constantemente, ¿no? Y en todo caso, obviamente, tengo que agradecer en primer lugar a Jaume Lanaspa y a la oficina del Club de Roma en Barcelona y obviamente a la Fundación La Caixa por esta colaboración que vamos teniendo con ellos. Y pues este año nos hemos planteado pues una serie de conferencias que ilustran, pues una vez más, este tema del desarrollo sostenible desde distintos puntos de vista para conseguir, bueno, pues que aquellos mejores expertos que hayamos podido encontrar para cada tema, pues vengan a ilustrarnos sobre cómo implementar y cómo, digamos, poner en efecto esos objetivos de desarrollo sostenible que sintetizan el planteamiento general lanzado por Naciones Unidas y que realmente han ido aceptando toda la comunidad internacional, yo diría ilustrada, en el sentido de los que creen que hemos de tener un progreso para el que además hemos de trabajar y tener, por tanto, pues, bueno, pues un futuro más resiliente, más sostenible, más próspero, más inclusivo y más seguro. Por tanto, tenemos esta serie de conferencias, la que empezamos hoy, moderada por Daniel de Torres, de la Red Española de Ciudades Interculturales, y a nuestro amigo aquí, Omar Itani, fundador de FabricAid, que és el jove campió de la Terra de l'ONU el 2019. Bé, em satisfà, además, especialmente como antiguo embajador que soy ante Naciones Unidas en Viena, y todos los organismos de Naciones Unidas en Viena, pues me siento especialmente reconfortado de tener a un joven campeón de la Tierra de Naciones Unidas 2019. Bueno, muy bien. Dicho esto, pues la verdad es que durante el ciclo, como habrán visto en el programa y como ha mencionado Jaume Lanaspa hace un instante, iremos repasando distintas temáticas, aparte de la de hoy. Los derechos de la naturaleza será la próxima. Es decir, claro, no estamos solo en los derechos humanos. Es que como no cuidemos la naturaleza, no habrá derechos ni de la naturaleza ni humanos. Y por tanto, es una temática que se ha ido ganando terreno en las conciencias de la gente, pero estamos lejos de que eso se traslade en políticas efectivas y, por tanto, hemos de seguir militando, yo diría, en este sentido. Luego, cómo movilizar a la juventud para la protección medioambiental, que será la segunda, con Manare Bekir, de EcoWave en Túnez. O bien en la tercera, pues las políticas de conservación marina y de preservación del espacio marino, especialmente en el Mediterráneo Oriental, y tendremos con nosotros pues a Zafer Sakirilla, presidente y fundador de Mediterranean Conservative Society de Turquía. Y luego, pues la quinta es paz y sostenibilidad. Evidentemente, la guerra es el peor fenómeno para los derechos tanto humanos como de la naturaleza, porque la capacidad destructiva de la guerra la hemos hecho crecer exponencialmente a lo largo del último siglo, ¿no? Las guerras de hace 2 o 3 siglos eran muy destructivas para los ejércitos, pero es que desde la Primera Guerra Mundial y sobre todo en la Segunda y en las sucesivas todavía más, yo diría que hay muchos más víctimas y desastres que afectan a los civiles y a las poblaciones más débiles y más desprotegidas, ¿no? Por tanto, paz y sostenibilidad es algo importante. Tendremos por aquí el director de EcoPeace Middle East y Gidon Gombert, israelí, y Naja Madjalani, director de la organización palestina EcoPeace Middle East. Y luego tendremos al final la conferencia por Leila Ben Ghasem, fundadora de Bluefish en Túnez, sobre creando el desarrollo socioeconómico a través de la cultura y la herencia cultural. Yo creo que, por tanto, vamos a tener ocasión en este ciclo de pasar revista a una serie de temas que son cruciales en este ámbito. Por mi parte, yo creo que no soy yo el conferenciante, tienen que ser ellos, por tanto, acabo en un momento. Solo mencionar una cuestión. En estos últimos días, como ustedes saben, se han presentado 2 grandes informes muy importantes para el futuro de Europa, de la Unión Europea, encargados por la Comisión Europea, ahora que va a haber un cambio de turno, digamos, en la Comisión Europea. Se está empezando a conocer los nombres de los nuevos comisarios, etcétera. Y ha salido el informe de Enrico Letta y el de Mario Draghi, dos grandes personajes, los dos italianos. Y lo menciono porque van a iluminar o sea, van a marcar el camino que debe emprender la política de la Unión Europea y que afectará, evidentemente, y muy fuertemente a los distintos países, esperemos que en positivo. Pero lo menciono porque los dos hacen hincapié en algo que pudiera parecer contradictorio, pero que lo menciono porque en realidad le hemos de dar la vuelta para que no lo sea. Es decir, la emergencia de que Europa mejore su nivel de productividad, porque las ganancias de productividad se están produciendo sobre todo en Estados Unidos y se están produciendo en China. Mencionan, por ejemplo, es eso que están hablando estos días los periódicos, que Estados Unidos el crecimiento ha sido el doble per cápita, el doble en Estados Unidos que en Europa desde el año 2000, en estos últimos 20 y pico años, y que es porque ellos han sabido dar un gran salto adelante en la aplicación de nuevas tecnologías al conjunto de los sectores económicos, y nosotros estamos todavía en una producción un poquito más manual, digamos, ¿no? Y que como no pillemos ese tren de la modernización de nuestras economías, no será sostenible el estado protector del bienestar que tenemos en Europa. Ese es el punto clave. No es que nos hayamos de modernizar para ser más modernos, es que si no, no será sostenible el estado de bienestar que nos hemos dotado en Europa, ¿no? Y eso puede parecer contradictorio con la necesidad de atender a esas otras urgencias, la preservación del medio ambiente, por ejemplo. Bueno, pues puede haber gente que diga, oiga, no, hay que ir más despacio en la transformación de las energías y bueno, no nos quieran ir tan rápido. Pero sin embargo, yo creo que está claro que la única manera es hacer compatibles las dos cosas, el incrementar la tecnología al mismo tiempo que estamos teniendo en cuenta todos estos fenómenos que vamos a estar viendo en estas sesiones que vamos a tener en este ciclo, porque si no, no sería sostenible ni una cosa ni la otra. Y además, bueno, pues ya que estamos en tema mediterráneo, yo diría que esto tampoco es sostenible si no asociamos a esa nueva época de progreso que queremos iniciar en Europa, un ciclo largo de progreso económico y social, no será sostenible tampoco si no incorporamos a este progreso económico y social en Europa al conjunto de nuestro vecindario más inmediato, que es el sur y este del Mediterráneo, y yo me atrevería a decir incluso al conjunto de África, cuyos problemas hemos de intentar ayudar de una manera decisiva a resolver, porque es que si no tampoco será sostenible el estado de bienestar que hemos montado en Europa y lo iríamos viendo de manera creciente en los últimos tiempos. Pero anem a pams, avui toca el que toca. Y por tanto vamos a escuchar a nuestros conferenciantes de hoy para que nos inicien en esta temática que realmente es apasionante. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes por estar con nosotros esta tarde y al Club de Roma, a la Fundación La Caixa, a Jaume Lanaspa y sus colaboradores, así como los de AMET que han estado trabajando en este tema. Muchas gracias.
Molt bé. Bona tarda. Moltes gràcies també a l'IEMET i al grup de Roma, al senyor Serem Florença, Jaume Lanaspa, per la invitació, l'oportunitat d'estar aquí moderant aquesta sessió. Una sessió que personalment em toca molt pel perfil del convidat. Yo simplemente voy a hacer una breve introducción, la voy a hacer en inglés, lo digo porque a partir de ahora vamos a estar hablando en inglés, por si alguien se tiene que ajustar el aparato de la interpretación. Well, okay, change mind. Okay, I think not many people know that textile production and waste are estimated to be responsible of 10% of global carbon emissions. I mean, I'm saying this because we are usually very sensitive about some topics, but textile industry is not what worries most a lot of people, you know. And I think it's important. It is estimated that in the middle of the century it's going to be 26%. It means more than aviation and shipping industries combined. I'm going to read some data because I don't want to be wrong with this, but it's also estimated that $500 billion in value is lost due to underutilized clothing and insufficient recycling efforts. What? It's not translation, it's not okay? No? Wow. Okay, let's fix this first, or yeah, can you, is this a technical issue or? Yeah, now it's okay? Now it's okay. In English, now it's okay, because you understand English, it's okay. Okay, let's start again then. No? Well, no, okay, let's synthesize. Otherwise, I mean, the important thing here is him. But anyway, Canal 3. Benvinguts a TV3. Okay, now, yeah. Okay. Okay, very like, yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, just, I was saying that not many people know that textile production and waste are estimated to be responsible for 10% of global carbon emissions. And it is estimated that in the middle of this century, it's going to be 26%, which is double of, well, it's aviation and shipping industry combined. I was saying also that it's estimated that $500 billion in value is lost due to underuse of clothing and insufficient recycling efforts. So carbon emissions, insufficient use, no recycling efforts. We all know that fast fashion industry also has grown significantly at human cost. So we can also add here the human cost of some of the big industries, global industries on textile. And we can also identify the high inequalities and how many disadvantaged populations, including now in the MENA regions, in the Middle East and Northern Africa region, how also refugees, you know, and other vulnerable populations cannot afford the access to basic quality clothing. It's in this context that we have our guest today, okay? Omar Itani, from Lebanon. It's been said already, one of the favorite countries in Spain. He co-founded FabricAid, a social enterprise aimed at providing appropriate clothing to disadvantaged communities by gathering, grading, cleaning, and redistributing used clothes. Okay, that could be like something that people can say, okay, yeah, that's interesting, you know, like, but FabricAid is regarded as one of the fastest growing social enterprise globally, which is like, wow, you know. Then is when you start thinking like, what he's done, this guy here, you know, like about to have this kind of big impact. Since launching in January 2018, the organization has successfully built several brands across Lebanon and Jordan as well, and has recently expanded operations into Egypt, I think. Yeah, Egypt. And with over $2.1 million in funding raised, the creation of more than 100 jobs, FabricAid has managed to collect 700,000 items and sell more than 400,000. Yes, probably today it's more, but it's not. Every day it's growing. Right?
700,000 items per year for 200,000 people. This is the last year. This year we're hoping to sell 1 million items to 250,000 people.
Okay, okay, right, okay. Let's go for it, Omar. I shut up now. First thing, okay, may I ask you to introduce briefly yourself, and then we'll go to the tipping point. What event, what situation, what personal experience led you to, you know, become a kind of change maker and move into this amazing project?
Definitely. First, thank you for the invitation and thank you for allowing me to be here and to speak on behalf of the company. My name is Omar Itani. I was born and raised in Beirut, Lebanon, and I started the social enterprise back in 2018 after my study abroad experience in the US, where I was introduced to what social enterprises do and how big of an impact they can have on society. The story of FabricAid started very, very organically. And I honestly, in 2018, I didn't know what a social enterprise is. I didn't even want to create a startup. I was donating my clothes to the concierge of my building. So I ironed the clothes, I prepared them, I put them in a nice box to deliver them to him on Christmas. And the guy was a bit chubbier, and I was even skinnier than today. And I just asked him organically, how will you actually benefit from my clothes? And keep in mind that my family has been donating clothes to him for the past 20 years. But it was the first time I personally delivered my clothes to him. So I asked him, how would you actually benefit from this clothes? And what will you do with them? And his reaction was, I'm not going to actually benefit from them. And I'll try to find somebody who can benefit, but if not, I'll throw them away or I'll get rid of them. And I was quite surprised that my family has been trying to do impact and thinking that they've been doing impact and they have a decent way to basically find a second life for the clothes of the family for the past 20 years. But actually, this wasn't actually the case. So I created a small social media campaign. I invited my friends, people in university, colleagues of mine, family members to give me basically clothes that they have and they don't want to reuse, and they are willing to donate. I collected this clothes and I started going to underprivileged areas, purely volunteering, asking people exactly what they need. So I would go into a family, knock on their door, and have a list. You want a t-shirt? Okay, what color, what cut, what size? And to try to match what people want with the things I already collected. And all through 2017, this was basically what we were doing. It was a pure volunteering activity. Until a unpleasant experience happened with my family. I was living at my mother's place. And the clothes first started in my bedroom, and then it was in the living room, and then it was in my brother's bedroom. And when it was close to reach my mother's bedroom, she had a clear ultimatum. I either get rid of you or get rid of the clothes. And out of sheer fear of being homeless, I decided to call it a day. We already did this for like a year. So I wanted to take the clothes and deliver them to an NGO that can basically do what I've been doing for a year. And this is where I discovered that in the MENA region in particular, there's barely any organizations focused on cloth collection and redistribution. And the vast majority of clothes that is collected by churches, mosques, and NGOs in the region are basically distributed in very ineffective ways. And this is where I felt that, no, this is a huge problem. There's 77 million people in the MENA region who can't afford clothing. And I'm not talking about people who cannot afford Zara and H&M. I'm talking about 77 million people who can't afford even the grassroots and the flea markets in the Arab world. And yet there's hundreds of millions that today have clothes that they are willing to donate, yet there's no effective system that can take from those who have and deliver to those who don't in a clear and efficient and effective way.
Yeah, this is a very like offer and demand connection and this, but what made you go for it? I mean, this is a really like, I don't know, in your life, you were, how old were you? Like 20 years old or something? I don't know.
Exactly.
And you probably before this, you were, I don't know, thinking on, I don't know.
Becoming an engineer.
Engineer, okay. But what made you feel that kind of, you know, energy or need or you know, let's say, let's go scale this, you know, because it's a big mess also, you know, like, I mean, it's like, okay, one thing is like starting, but then it's managing with the production and distribution. This is you know, what was your insight about, you know, I'm going to do this, you know, you had some vision at some point or something?
Honestly, it's a combination of different things. So one, I come from a part of the world that has so many different problems. And people tend to complain about those problems and blame them on politicians or on other people rather than actually taking action. And since a very young age, I was raised that if you have a problem, you fix it. And it doesn't matter who is responsible for it, but if you can fix something, fix it, rather than complaining. So this was an ideology that I was brought up on.
Yeah.
Two, I got introduced to what social enterprises and the huge impact that companies like Salvation Army, Buffalo Exchange in the US do, and how many million lives they change in the US. And I felt that this experience and the success of social enterprises should be democratized and should be globalized. So this was number two. And number three, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's such an exciting challenge to pursue. The grand vision of FabricAid is quite simple. We cannot eradicate poverty, but with what we are doing at FabricAid, we can eradicate a symptom of poverty. At least clothes unaffordability for a poor person will no longer be an issue. And honestly, although this is a relatively big goal, it's very much doable. It just needs some investment, hard work, and the ability to actually scale the solution. And I think I was very lucky to stumble on a problem that has a huge impact and that can actually be completely resolved.
Yeah, totally. But let's go now to the moment in which you were alone at the beginning, you know, and at some point you have this kind of eureka moment and saying, hey, look, this is so inefficient. There's a lot of people who need this. There is a lot of, you know, material and clothes, but there is no efficient way to connect these two dimensions. But how did you make it into action? What is the step-by-step process in which you can become like an organization in more than 100 jobs? I mean, how was the process of saying, okay, because many people are saying, okay, yeah, that's easy to say, but you know, how do you start? You know, what do you do? Do you need the first like 1-2 people to support you, and then what resources? Where do you get some resources for this? How do you grow this? Sure. You know, just
honestly, inexperience and but predominantly inexperience and ignorance is a bliss, because you don't know how complicated things are. In the beginning, I really thought that this should be a simple thing to solve. Just collect from those who have. It can be on the phone, like they would just call you and you would pick up the clothes from them. And then we would sort it and have like a pop-up market in an underprivileged area. And this is how the company actually started. We used to collect clothes from people. They would call us. We would go pick up the clothes from them, sort it at a small basement that we were able to rent. And then we would distribute those items in public schools and underprivileged areas in partnerships with NGOs and municipalities. So it would create a pop-up market. Underprivileged people would come, they would choose the item they want. And the most important aspect is to give people a dignified shopping experience and the power to choose what they want.
Yeah.
So you go in, everything is hanged, cleaned, neatly displayed. There's price tags, there's fitting rooms, there's personalized advice. People have the chance to choose whatever they want at prices that they can actually afford without feeling that somebody is doing charity for them. And this aspect of the business started basically from day one, because you can establish a dignified shopping experience basically anywhere. And you can collect clothes on a small scale, relatively very easy. And this is how the company started. We didn't need funding, and it started organically.
But you had some voluntary work from
yes,
people.
Exactly.
Support. It was all voluntary.
Friends,
right?
100%.
Okay.
It started voluntary.
Family and friends. The
exactly.
usual.
Exactly. And we started making money from those pop-up markets. So each one we would make a couple of $100, and then we would make the pop-ups became bigger and bigger. So we'd make a couple of $1,000. And this money, we gathered it and we opened our first store. And then we started to win like competitions and awards. And we took this money to create our first sorting facility. And then at a certain scale, when we had a couple of stores, we were able to get some angel investors. When we got some angel investors, we expanded the number of stores and started installing clothing collection bins and brought some vehicles. And I was no longer using my car, and my dad's car, and my brother's car. So it was a very organic process, and it took time. It took us 6 years of every 5-6 months, there's one new thing that would happen, one additional source of money, or one market that would make more than a couple of $1,000s. So it was an organic addition, and it was never, in 3 years we need to be this size, and in 5 years we will be in this size. We were just working with whatever we had, and whenever we had an opportunity to grow, we grew.
Okay, what is the photography of the situation now? I mean, in the company, let's say,
Sure.
it's like what is the team? How many people are you there, and what is the day? In terms of the production, and how many? Because when you say you expand to Jordan, do you have in Jordan what? Do you have like a partner there, apart from the company, it's living there and it's distributing this?
So we have around 300 collection centers in Lebanon where people can donate. 300 and partnerships with around 150 charities. Around 90% of the clothes that is donated in Lebanon today ends up in FabricAid. In Jordan, we have around 250 collection centers and partnerships with around 50 charities. Around 70% of the clothes donated in Jordan ends up in FabricAid. In Egypt, we operate through the Egyptian Clothing Bank, and basically around 90% of the clothes donated in Egypt ends up in FabricAid through this partnership, of course. In Lebanon, we have around 11 stores. In Jordan, we have also around 11, 12 stores. And now in Egypt, with the Egyptian Clothing Bank, we are opening 15 stores. The FabricAid's direct team today is around 110, 120 individuals. And we employ a couple of hundred part-timers. In Egypt, our team with the Egyptian Clothing Bank is around 250 individuals.
Okay. Wow. Okay. When I was coming here, I was thinking about, we have this company here, it's called Umana. You know Umana, right? And I was thinking, you don't know Umana, right?
Heard of them.
You heard of it, okay. You can go tomorrow, maybe.
I'm going to Solidance. It's a huge textile recycler in Barcelona. I think I slaughtered the name. This is not how we pronounce the name, but
no,
some people got it.
No, but I was thinking about the difference. I was thinking, but just let me see if I say this properly. In Umana, they sell the secondhand like clothes quite cheap. In your case, I think it was interesting, the thing about saying if it's for free, it's somehow it's not good because people don't value. At some point, it's good to make something, but I think it's like €1 or €0.5 or $1, whatever. One thing it's when you offer these clothes to, let's say, underprivileged or people, with needs in terms of this, it can be somehow like, I don't imagine now the place like a pop-up market and just underprivileged people going there, or it's more like also the people go there apart from the underprivileged, because Umana, it's a shop that it's for everybody, right? So even hipster people go there to look for a 70s, cool jacket or whatever. And I think it has like, I don't know data and indicators. I don't know how many underprivileged go to Umana, honestly. I don't know. But I think this is a bit like how, there is some kind of a stigmatization also, that the public, if you're poor, in your neighborhood, whatever, it has like going to places which is for the poor, it has some stigmatization there. While the Umana, I think nobody go to the Umana and thinking, oh, no, but now it becomes something like really cool, at some point. So maybe it's also, I don't know if they are going to the target, reaching the target of the underprivileged, of course, people who don't have enough resources can go there and buy, of course. But there's a very mix of public, So in your case, how is it this? How is the target of this, company, let's say, only the underprivileged, or you're thinking on opening to a wider audience?
So we have two different brands in the company. One is called Khlanj, which is basically the low-cost stores that I mentioned, stores in extremely underprivileged areas. So if you visit Beirut, you would definitely not go to any of the locations where we operate our stores.
Okay.
Because the stores, the local stores are in basically next to refugee camps, in very underprivileged areas where usually tourists, even people from middle-class communities don't go. There's two actually big differences between the MENA region and Spain, for example, or Europe in general. The level of poverty in the MENA region is more aggressive than here. So, for example, in Egypt, there's 30 million people who live in slums. And this is 30% of the Egyptian population. And it's not very common for people from those areas to easily have access due to the transportation cost to middle class and upper middle class areas. So we had to segment the concept. We have stores that target extremely marginalized communities that is located in extremely marginalized areas, and where the average price per item is basically $1.
Yeah. Okay.
And we have other stores similar to under the name Second Base, where I actually bought this item. Okay. So in those stores we buy.
You bought it.
Exactly. Okay. They deducted it from my salary. Where we buy, basically, we sell hipster, vintage, boho, African print stuff, very hipster items.
Yeah.
Those items are sold under Second Base. And basically the target audience is middle class, upper middle class communities, people who want to buy items are environmentally conscious in what they want to buy, or people who want to buy things that are different from what everyone else is wearing. So we have those two segments. Okay. It's also another difference between the MENA region and Europe. The secondhand market in the Arab world is stigmatized. And in our concept in Second Base, we are working very hard in removing the stigma of buying secondhand. So ensuring that secondhand can be actually cool, that it's highlighting its environmental impact. There's stigmas about how clean those items, are they sanitized? And in our stores, like we have videos of how we sanitize every single item, how we clean those. Our stores are like very nice areas of the city, very well equipped, really a great shopping experience. Like some of our stores are in the same streets where Ralph Lauren and Tommy Hilfiger would have their own stores. This is when it comes to Second Base. While Souq Khlanj is basically where, Khlanj, the local stores, is basically where UNICEF would operate, where humanitarian organizations would usually have most of their volunteers and their activities.
Okay. What about if I ask you about what have been the 2 or 3 most important challenges or obstacles that you've faced during this time?
So one of the challenges,
you mentioned some already,
is close to what we mentioned. The idea here, it's very common for people to donate clothes, and then the charity would sell those clothes and fund and use the money to basically increase its impact. In the Arab world, if I'm donating something, I'm expecting that this thing will be delivered for free to marginalized communities, and that we cannot sell it, and it needs to be delivered for free. So it was an important marketing messaging to tell people that, look, yes, we are charging $1 per item, but the difference is that we offer people a dignified shopping experience. Instead of reaching 10,000 people, we reach 200,000 people. And our stores are very well equipped. We don't rely on donor funding. So when the Lebanese economy collapsed 4 or 5 years ago, the banks no longer gave sponsorships. International charities reduced their funding drastically in Lebanon. Even the government reduced its subsidies. So most of those volunteering initiatives that lived on grants died while we grew, because our growth was very organic. It was based on the economics of the actual model. So introducing a different mindset of how impact can be actually achieved was one of our challenges. Another challenge, we operate in an extremely challenging area of the world. especially Beirut and Lebanon in the past 5 years. We went from a revolution to currency devaluation to Beirut blast, unfortunately, to currently war on our southern border. So those challenges, although many times they don't impact the business directly, but they impact our ability to raise capital. We've been thankfully able to raise around $4 million in capital, but still, this would have been much easier if we were operating in Dubai. Fundraising was a challenge. Introducing a new concept to a new impact concept was also a challenge. And 3, understanding how we can localize and domesticate the solution. So the solution that is currently being implemented in Europe cannot be implemented in the Middle East. And what we are doing at this scale and the way we do it has not been replicated before. So there's nobody that we can benchmark from or learn from, so we can basically do it in the same way. So we had to try things out, try what is the most affordable way to collect clothes, what is the most affordable way to sort them, what is the most affordable way to create the retail experience, how can we upcycle, what items can go to our vintage stores and what items can go to our thrift stores, what is the right pricing, do we price the items at $0.50, $2, what is acceptable to people and what is not acceptable. So all of given that the model is quite virgin, it required a lot of trial and error. So yeah, those are basically the main challenges.
Okay, thank you so much. We will continue with the FabricAid later, but I think I want you to share with them like a little bit of your personality, and I think when you're kind of change maker spirit, you'll have it not just in one topic, you know, it's a kind of attitude, you know, towards the reality. Can just share with them a little bit about the moment, your reaction with the blast and the fabric relief, you know, moment that you have there, because I think they could be very interesting.
Sure. So before going into fabric relief, I'll address the first aspect of the question. I think in general, the entrepreneurial experience requires a specific type of character. Previously, if you asked me 6 years ago, I hoped, especially after I came from my study abroad, I felt that everybody should become an entrepreneur and everybody should become a social entrepreneur. Because this would elevate poverty, it would help communities and society. And I was a big advocate of that. Like even my friends in university, I was like, no, don't work at this corporation. Like you need to start your own thing. And I then discovered that not really. It requires a very particular set of characteristics. One of them is being stupidly optimistic. You cannot be a cynical entrepreneur. You can be a cynical analyst, maybe even a cynical CEO. But the most important aspect of an entrepreneur is to be extremely optimistic, extremely positive, to think that the risk you are taking will work out. And another aspect that really I think can do a lot of difference, especially in social entrepreneurship, since there's not a lot of capital in social entrepreneurship, whether it's in the Middle East or anywhere across the world. Every time I have a conversation with a social entrepreneur, they talk about how scarce the funding is, how little impact investing is actually exists. So for social entrepreneurs in particular, it's important to understand the value of limited resources. And here, if you allow me to share a small story. Back in 2019, Berkeley University organizes the biggest competition in the world for social enterprises. And they've been doing it for the past 25 years. As a company from the Middle East, never an Arab or a Middle Eastern company was able to win that competition. And every year, Lebanon and other countries in the region would send companies and we would lose. FabricAid was fortunate enough to go to the finals. And I remember very well during the pitching sessions, we had the opportunity to see what other startups were pitching. I remember an American startup. The guy was ex-McKinsey, and he he operated and he served in the US Marines for 4 years. And then he created a company that helps cops to basically train on very stressful situations so that when they are in actual stressful situations, they don't resort to violence. And they tried to implement the solution, and it really, in the police stations where they implemented the solution, the violence rate declined. And I was looking at his pitch, and I'm like, he raised, I don't know how much funding, and the solution, and the guy is McKinsey, and I'm like, the American Marines, and I felt like there's no way on earth we are going to win this competition. And then one of the advisors in the competition, he was like, this startup raised $15 million. So for $15 million, what they did is impressive. If you are trying to compare what you did compared to what they did, they will win the competition. What you need to convince the judges of is that $1 that you would receive, you will be able to maximize its impact more than the $1 that a $15 million startup can do with. So the competition was at the time $40,000. You need to show them that $40,000 can create much more impact with you than with that other startup or the other competing startups. And this is extremely important in entrepreneurship. You need to be very stingy. Tech entrepreneurs in developed countries have the luxury of raising $15 million. As a social entrepreneur, most probably you don't have this luxury. You're very, very lucky if you're able to raise $1 million. Really lucky. So you need to understand how can I create the maximum impact from every $1 that I have. And this can only happen if you are extremely stingy in your approach. We've never printed a business card. We've never, in our office, not a single chair is not secondhand. Every time we paint, like the office, or we do any type of renovation, it's the team doing the renovation. We buy the items. Maybe we have somebody to help us, like if it's a technical thing. It's those small details. When we create new stores, we go there and renovate those stores. And we've built this internal capacity. It's in every small activity, you just learn how to save a couple of $100, a couple of $1,000 here. And this, working with austerity and working with bootstrap, is an extremely important skill for social entrepreneur. If I ever create an impact fund, the first and the most important question is to understand how, maybe this is an extreme adjective, but how paranoid is the entrepreneur in making sure that this so much can be done with so little. This is the mentality of social entrepreneurs. If you work in the Wall Street, it's a very different mentality, but we don't. So this is the first aspect of the question. The second part, like any social entrepreneur, and honestly, like any decent person, God bless this place, but I'm sure if something, again, God bless this place, if something bad happens in Barcelona, a lot of the people in this room would be trying to help and try to support and try to fix whatever happens. In Lebanon in 2020, we had the Beirut blast. The blast was catastrophic. It happened in the safest area in Beirut, an area that usually nothing happens in. It's as safe as anywhere you travel to, and very prosperous. And there was a blast in the port, and 200 people died. 20,000 people were injured, including myself and several other team members.
Because you were there, you were
one of our stores and my house was right in front of the port.
Right. Okay.
So actually, one of the team members lost a finger in the explosion. So it was extremely traumatic. We've never witnessed war, never seen a dead person or an injured person. And on that day, unfortunately, we saw plenty. And the most important thing that we saw the thing that we love the most, at least for me, my city, completely destroyed. During the day of the explosion, I remember again 20,000 people were injured, so every hospital is preoccupied. So until we got the chance to do the surgery, it was around 2 in the morning, and I left at like 5 in the morning. And I remember I couldn't sleep that night because I felt that, okay, maybe like we should give up on this city. If everything is destroyed, maybe we just call it a day and we leave. I remember the next day in the morning, I turned on the TV, and in the place, the main street where the explosion happened in front of the port, there was several thousand volunteers on the streets, picking up the rubble in their hands. Again, the government was incredibly incompetent and incapable of doing anything, and nobody wanted the government to do anything because they were responsible for what happened. And I remember I looked at the TV and I was like, I couldn't believe my eyes. Like, okay, there's thousands of people who didn't give up on this city. So I left my place, and we directly, myself and everybody in the FabricAid team, we created something called Fabric Relief, where we were fortunate enough to be able to renovate 50 houses. We were able to distribute around 10,000 food parcels, clean a lot of the streets where the explosion damaged. And honestly, this was, and although it was a very dark experience where we lost loved ones, and it had a huge economic impact on the company and on us, obviously, because we lost houses and cars and stores. But it was an incredibly empowering experience, because you understand what makes a city and what makes a community a community. It's not about the streets or about the buildings, or it's about the people in it and how much people are willing to give this place. So at the darkest time, I felt the most fortunate, because I felt that I'm in a place that actually needs me, and I can actually give this place something. And what we've built at FabricAid, those warehouses and those cars, can actually be used to create even more impact. So yeah, this is the...
Wow, okay. Yeah, that's really impressive and touching in it somehow. And if I ask you, what do you think have been the most relevant impacts you've got until now in FabricAid, in an open mind kind of idea of impact, because we have the numbers, we have the hundreds of thousands, but if you think in a wider way, in the context that you are explaining, in Lebanon with all the context, social, economic, cultural context, but also this capacity also to make people be aware that some changes can be made, and also this about changing the mentalities or changing the cultural somehow, also with the idea of the second hand. I really understand you, because don't think that here people still don't stigmatize second hand things, like I need to buy a sofa now. They are quite expensive. I was thinking on a second hand. I have got some of my relatives saying, "What do you mean a second hand sofa?" It's like, well, if it's clean, maybe it's well done. What's the problem? Still, a lot of people have, prejudices and this and this. But what have been some of the, if you would point out 2 impacts that you think are more relevant and sustainable somehow?
I think empowerment is an impact that we were able to achieve, and I hope we'll be able to achieve more of it in the future, without really understanding that this is the core thing we give at FabricAid. It's not that we offer people clothes or that we offer people clothes at affordable prices. I was once in a store, and I was like checking the numbers, talking to the team at the store, and one of the clients noticed that I have something to do with the management of the store. So he approached me and he was like giving compliments about the store. And I was thanking him profusely for visiting and for being a client. And then he mentioned something that was quite interesting. He's like, this is the only place in the country where I can bring my kids and tell them to choose whatever they want without fearing what the bill would be. Mm-hmm. So it's the ability to really empower the father, the mother. Mm-hmm. It's the ability to choose what you want. And this, the dignification.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the dignity, you know. Like,
is basically the most important aspect. It's honestly even more important than actually delivering the clothes.
And the material.
So I thought we were in the business of giving clothes to marginalized communities at affordable prices. And this is the biggest impact we do, is providing a good that is expensive at affordable prices. And then I discovered that, yes, of course, but it's also the feeling that comes with the idea, I can actually buy this item now.
Yeah.
So this is from the direct impact. On a long run, I hope that the limited today, but hopefully bigger in the future, success of FabricAid would create competition. More people will try to either compete in creating social enterprises in the field of secondhand clothes, or even in other types of social enterprises. Again, I come from a place in the world where the government is not capable of resolving the problems that the society face. So society needs to step in and resolve those problems. So social enterprises around the world are so important. In the Middle East, they are even like a step more. We need to have more social enterprises. Otherwise, we cannot ensure a proper lifestyle to our generations and the generations to come.
Yeah, definitely. Let me ask you a question which is mixed personal and professional. Okay. In terms of the future, how do you see the future of FabricAid? This is one question. In terms of like in the next, I don't know, 5-10 years, what do you think it's the evolution should be? Okay, should be, you know, in terms of like future in very different ways. And this question is at the same time with your future, because do you know a lot of entrepreneurs? I've got like one dimension of entrepreneurs as entrepreneur, and there is always this kind of personal traits of saying maybe you are good in launching new ideas and projects and whatever, but after a while maybe you become a bit like, let's say, bored in terms of like managing a business, because your entrepreneur dimension, needs some more energy and adrenaline of creating a new thing, you know, fixing a new solution, because you are good at that. Maybe, you know, like there's someone else who is better than you in managing a business, you know, like, so my question is like, how do you see the future of FabricAid and your future? Do you think they are connected or not, or what do you think?
So for FabricAid, it's hopes always, not a plan, but like hopes that in the upcoming 10 years, we'll be able to really expand our presence in Lebanon and Jordan, of course, but also more in Egypt, and not only in Cairo, but in also other governorates. It's the second biggest country in Africa. 110 million people. So, and there's 30 million people who live in slums. So there's a huge amount of people that we can serve there. The next step, a couple of years after that, will be to open up an even more challenging markets, where the more challenging the market, the more the amount of impact we can do. Pakistan, Iraq, and Syria are high areas of focus due to the high level of wealth inequality, extreme poverty in those areas. So I hope in the upcoming 10 years we'll be not reaching 200,000 beneficiaries, but hopefully something around several million beneficiaries in those countries that I mentioned. So I think there will be a bigger geographical expansion to what we do at FabricAid. With it comes a bigger number of beneficiaries, a bigger number of items collected and distributed. Also, commercially, the upcycling process, we basically turn around 25% of what we collect cannot be reused. We cannot send it to our markets. It needs to be upcycled into new clothing and merchandise. And this clothing and merchandise, we sell it through partnerships we have with international companies, Deloitte, PwC, Monoprix. We create merchandise for them made from secondhand clothes. I also would hope for this aspect of the business to grow and create more employment. On a personal level, exactly what you said. I'm starting to discover very clearly that I'm not a great CEO. Predominantly because I'm very optimistic. So I'm not a detailed planner. And that's a terrible thing if you're, especially at the scale we are reaching out to. So I think in the upcoming few years at a certain scale, I shouldn't, for the health of the company and everybody who works on it, I shouldn't remain to be the CEO. I would love to continue serve in the things I know how to serve in.
Yeah.
So maybe as a member of the board, but not as an executive member. Continue to create those partnerships, to lay this vision, to expand the company. This is where I feel to represent the company, this is where I feel I can contribute the most. But honestly, managing the day-to-day, especially when the company becomes bigger, I know entrepreneurs who are perfect. They are great entrepreneurs and great CEOs.
Yeah.
A good entrepreneur and a much worse CEO. So I would like to, I would no longer do that in the upcoming few years. But what I would love to do is to create an impact studio. Because FabricAid, no matter how big it gets, we cannot resolve a lot of the problems that our communities and our societies face. So we need to have more and more social enterprises. And I would like to create an impact fund and an impact studio that creates and funds social enterprises to solve different issues. From literally, we don't lack problems to try to resolve.
You have a good offer to choose.
Exactly. From everything, from infrastructure to food to utilities to healthcare to housing. There's so much innovation that has not been tapped purely because people couldn't find economic value in it. I was reading something interesting. There's something like literally a couple of thousand companies and startups around the world that created chatbots. So those are entire businesses that basically created, the chatbot is when you go into a website and you start talking to the website. This is a chatbot technology. There's thousands of startups that do that. So, and some of them raised hundreds of millions of dollars. So we have extremely smart people, so much money that goes into chatbots. And for me, this is, and the only reason this happens because those companies make money. So you are able to get a lot of investment and a lot of smart people and a lot of talent and technology into things that make money. So that's why a lot of the tech and ecosystem, in my modest opinion, is trying to resolve problems that are not really problems. They are more economic opportunities. I think in the future we'll be finding more and more entrepreneurs who are changing problems into economic opportunities and resolving those problems through creating businesses. So we need to have more focus in trying to serve less those who are already served, and trickle down the technology and the talent and the investment to a huge chunk of society that really never benefit from them. Like the tech boom, if you go to a person who lives in an Egyptian slum, it had some impact on him, but very, very limited impact. Egypt is a hub for startups in the Middle East. All of those startups don't serve any of the 30 million people who live in the slums. This should not be the case. The technology, the investment, and the talent should be trickled down, and I hope this will be the next challenge I take in my life.
Okay, that's a good final point before we can ask some questions for the public before I ask you a final message. But let me tell you that I somehow envy you, because we create like a kind of a startup, social entrepreneur, which goal is to challenge prejudices and stop kind of rumors about, based on prejudices and misinformation. One of the most complex elements for growing is the impact, So when you don't have any tangible element in terms of, you can put some numbers, like say, I solved these numbers of, we are providing this to communities. You need to put a lot of effort. That's why I was asking you about the impact in a, because sometimes in our case, when you want to, in a community, there is hostility and there are prejudices and there's polarization, and there are a lot of nowadays, but we started a long time ago before the fake news on this, and people, are spreading these rumors or something. The way you can show impact sometimes is more with the absence of hostility, but in terms of indicators, it's quite complex. But nevertheless, we see some impacts that are worth to continue and growing. But at the same time, there is like the world suddenly, let's say, it's going even more and more into this kind of polarization and bubbles and this, but I think your project is also contributing to reduce prejudices and to, when you say empower, that's a very important thing, because it's about the dignity of people, choosing, having this experience of having with their kids and say, you can choose, it's not like, okay, because still people think like, okay, second how I give it to someone poor, and I know it doesn't fit me, even, I don't like it at all. And it's what, oh, you cannot, complain because it's free, no, come on, we all can have our, dignity and want to, and I think you point out very well the impact in from the human, dimension, it's not just about the material, but okay, I'm of course having clothes and not having it, it's a very important thing. But in this context, I think this dignity dimension, it's the deeper impact. So before asking you, sending a message to also maybe an advice, because maybe we have people here that can be maybe entrepreneur, but maybe that they are not, as you were saying. At some point, I also thought that, everybody should be into, it's not at all, we need to combine different profiles, and this is where the most impact you have. I mean, you need CEOs that are very good on focusing on dealing with details, on planning, and you need this kind of energy that comes from, different kind of minds. And just with entrepreneurs, you don't go to,
you don't do much.
You need sustainability, you need impacts, and it's a mix of different profiles, which is diversity. At the end, is the richness is in diversity. And that's the good thing. So anyway, but even people who are not entrepreneur, but they have a very important role in this kind of projects. Just think about some advice that you would say, maybe to the people here in the room, to contribute somehow, to try to also influence here the people to be more active somehow in this area?
One thing that worked really, really well for us and for me personally, it's a cliche to say, but it's true. It's really true.
Sometimes rumors are true. So we don't fight against it.
It's the power of gratitude, and actually not even the power of gratitude. Commercializing and using gratitude to really grow a business. So when I started, I was 21 years old, dropped out of university, had no clue what the fashion industry is about, never started a business before. So as little experience as you can possibly have. One of the things that really helped is that I really knew that. I knew that I know very little. So it was very easy to ask people for advice. And it's very easy to, there was no barrier to ask for support, to ask somebody who's more senior, how do I do this? How do I open a store? How do I raise? I remember our first organization chart was pro bono from a guy that I asked him. He has a big startup, and he had a similar panel, and he was discussing how they organize their organization chart. And I felt, oh, it's super interesting. How do people do that? And I asked him. And he did the first organization chart for the company, our first financial model, our first fundraising strategy, our first pitch deck. Not only the first and the second and the third and the fourth. All of those were because of kind people who wanted to help. But those kind people who want to help are not going to approach you. You will approach them. So there's two things about that. This can really, really help the business and in order or make anything actually work. But in order to do that, there's two steps. You shouldn't, you should accept that out of every 5 people you reach out to, 1 person is not going to answer. And 1 person is going to have maybe a negative reaction or response, block you. But honestly, the majority of people, like 3 out of the 5, will support in a certain way. 1 will be like very interested and will help and will give time and effort. And the remaining 2 will give effort maybe to a smaller extent. But the success rate is like 3 out of 5. That's really, a really high success rate. And it provides much more than what it takes. It's much more than the 2 people who blocked you. So this is the first advice, is not to fear to reach out to people. Till today, it's a thing that I do really on a weekly basis. I reach out to successful business people from Lebanon who are abroad, or bankers, and I just ask them for a meeting to answer this question or to learn more about what they did in this case. And till today, the success rate is 60%, 3 out of 5. So this is step number 1. To make this, to reach this 60% success rate of the people you approach, you need to do another thing. You need to publicize gratitude. So let's say you supported my business, so you supported me. I will make sure that the biggest number of people possible will know that you actually did that. And in every situation, whether you are there or you are not there, I try to publicize those who did well to the company and those who supported for several reasons. 1, because this is a genuine feeling I have. So I feel a lot of gratitude to the people who supported. 2, because this also motivates other people to support. If you help the company and I thanked you, and of course, by that, I will be giving compliments to your experience and how your experience have contributed in helping us in XYZ. This will motivate other people to, this guy appreciates a favor. So if I support him also, my effort and my time would be appreciated. Even if it didn't have impact, at least it will be appreciated. This goes a long way. And when I publicize and I show you gratitude for what you did, most probably you will support me again. And the vast majority of that support is not financial. The vast majority of that support is through network, through introductions, through an advice, through the number of opportunities that I got just from people who know, we thought of you, we thought of FabricAid, we thought that you should be nominated to this, or I want to introduce you to this person, or this, sometimes this article is something that you really should read. For me, this goes a long, long way. And this is how we were able to raise much of our capital, build much of our infrastructure, and learn the vast majority of what I personally today know. Again, I'm a university dropout, so I had to compensate the lack of education somewhere else. To build something, you cannot not be educated. You have to be educated. Where this education comes, it doesn't matter. It can come from university, it can come from life, it can come from those one-on-one meetings, it comes from reading books. But I'm not a great reader. Like if I read something, I'm not an Elon Musk. I understand it in like 30 minutes. I need to, this one-on-one sessions is how I actually learn.
There are people like this. We are all different and we learn from many different places. Yeah, I think before asking the public, I think he deserves a big clap. It's great to see how at this time of the day, in this room, which is great, inspiring, that you managed to keep the attention, all the time. And that's very big, good thing about you, and the way you communicate also your passion, And okay, we open the floor to public. Any question, any curiosity, any experience you want to share, any detail you want to know about, the project, the company, the experience. Is there anyone who wants to break the ice? Yes, back there, please. I think you are.
Thank you, Omar, for sharing your experience and being so brave, to carry on this initiative. It is a very specific question. How do you deal with dead stocks? I assume that you also have dead stocks. How do you, I don't know, ¿cómo evitas que acaben en landfills?
How do you avoid all of these?
Okay. The last part of your statement was in
Yo no he
Spanish.
entendido lo último que has preguntado.
¿Cómo evitas que acaben en vertederos?
¿Cómo evitas que acabe en el vertedero?
En el vertedero, la ropa que no...
La ropa que él no ha podido vender.
Que no ha podido vender ya. Es que tiene una cosa muy interesante que no sé si ha dicho hoy, ¿no?
Okay, there is something very interesting that I don't know whether he has said.
And instead of you throwing to the waste, well, to the garbage, what do you do with that remains?
So this is why we started our upcycling practice. We had it out of every
pillows or something, I think. No,
exactly. So we would upcycle the items into merchandise. It can be tote bags, it can be laptop cases. We have more than 60 products that are made from secondhand material. But even when you upcycle, there's the shreds, there's small pieces. And I think this was your question. So the small fabrics, we'd use them as stuffings. We would shred them. And this we would basically make it the inside of it. The inside. We would make it made of secondhand clothes. And if you want it to be comfortable, if you want it to be very soft, then the size of the shred needs to be very small. So it becomes a particle. If you want it to be tough, which is the case of this one, it needs to be mixed with other material and it needs to be a bigger shred of textile. We also were able to turn textile into similar boards where we mix wood,
Mhm.
shredded wood,
Yeah.
with textile and resin to create a material similar to gypsum board. We do that through partners. We supply them with the textile, with part of the R&D, and they actually manufacture furniture, they use it in construction. Many of our bins in Lebanon are made from this material. So people are donating clothes in bins made from recycled textile and recycled wood. So those are some of the applications. Honestly, there's so much. There's a company in Paris that does basically bricks. Design, non-structured, but like bricks. They look really, really cool. A bit expensive, but super interesting. And great for decoration. I'm excited to go to like the places and see them. There's a company in Morocco that basically turns them in a beautiful way into carpets. So they reweave the clothes into carpets. There's a very successful startup in Japan that was able to really turn them back into fiber and create new shirts from them. So the actual meaning of recycling. So you turn a t-shirt back into a t-shirt. There's a lot of technologies, a lot of innovation in that field, predominantly because of what you started with. This is a massive problem. It's the second most polluting industry in the world. Today, we had fast fashion by companies like H&M and Zara, and now we have ultra fast fashion with companies like Shein. So the problem is not becoming smaller. The problem is becoming bigger and bigger. So recycling technologies and value chains and business models is extremely important. And frankly, with all the innovations that I mentioned, we should have way more.
I don't know you, but I'm thinking now on the clothes I've got in my house that I haven't worn them for years, and I'm thinking, shit, I need to do something tomorrow with that, with the, you know, like
good.
We cannot keep that, you know, and just going to buy something now, you know, because I want like another t-shirt, you know, I need to do something.
I know somebody in Beirut who would love to take.
Let's go to it. Let's go to bring it some. Okay, another question. Yeah, here we have.
Una pregunta quizá un poco ingenua. Como a usted le gusta.
I have a naive question for you. Would it be feasible for you to have a partnership with a Spanish company called Inditex, which is the biggest clothing manufacturer in the world? Because you could use actually their sales chain.
He says that could you imagine do you like to build partnerships with other, you know, agents, and why don't you think to build a partnership with Inditex? Inditex is the big company of Zara and this, and in Spain that maybe, you know, to do something about, you know.
I would love to. Yes. They don't answer my emails. They are part of the 40% that never answered. So I
can give you a contact, maybe.
Please, we actually have a partnership with H&M.
Yeah, you have a partnership with H&M.
They answered the email. But with Inditex, it would be Inditex. I know that they're investing heavily in secondhand. I think they opened their
and they are online.
So they are investing in those value chains, and they are trying to do a lot. But we maybe we are not at the scale to work with Zara, because it's maybe the second biggest fast fashion company in the world. But if you have a contact, please.
Yeah, can go to Galicia.
They are centered in Galicia.
Yeah.
Galicia. Can we go tomorrow?
Special guy.
I'm leaving on Thursday.
Okay, we can go there tomorrow after Sagrada Familia.
Exactly.
Okay, any other question here? No, yes, please.
Hola, Omar, buena tarde. Primero, felicitarte por la iniciativa.
First of all, Omar, thank you very much.
The translation on this is no longer working.
Why? Maybe the channel, you need to pick one first.
Can you try?
¿Ahora?
Yes.
Can you hear now? Can you hear now? Can you hear now? Can you hear now? Can you hear me? Okay, I'd like to congratulate you for this wonderful initiative action in a country like Lebanon that's so much loved in Spain. The second thing, I've been working for 22 years in the field of second-hand clothing sales. It's called Humana. And it's so funny because I really wanted to listen to you. I really wanted to listen to you. And I see there is a very big difference in a country like Lebanon and in a country like Europe, like Spain, in which people's closets are full and people cannot buy more clothing because they do not get rid of anything. And personally, I want to bet on sustainability and to degrowth, to reduce the level of consumption. That's what I believe we should do. And we should get rid of the things we do not need, as you have said. Congratulations, Imar. Congratulations for the great work you're carrying out in Lebanon, because this is what we should do in countries like my own, Chile. I come from Chile, and the desert in Chile is filled with European waste.
First, thank you so much for that question. And whoever the translator is, he's really, really great. Like I got every the passion of your question. Yes, definitely. Actually, with Humana, we have a small partnership, and they've once sent a container to Beirut after the Beirut blast.
Oh, wow.
So yes.
Really?
Is Juana Spanish?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay, okay.
Perdón, ahora sí. La compañía nació en Dinamarca.
We were born in Denmark. It was a dream of a few students who were studying anthropology, and they did the research work in Zimbabwe 35 years ago. And they realized there was so much poverty that they decided to do something about it. And they went back to Denmark. They collected a lot of money in many markets, as you said. And they went with that money they had collected, and they tried to help people in Zimbabwe with it. And the business grew, and now it's a big business. On the 31st of December, we end with zero money. All of the money we collect is used to actually keep the wheel of recycling, to keep our projects in Africa, and part to pay us workers at Humana. We work in the shops and we take care of that wonderful audience that buys secondhand clothing.
It's a beautiful organization. It was very inspiring for us, honestly.
Yeah.
I think there's another idea made by Caritas.
Okay.
Caritas in Valencia. I have now the web. Sorry. Excuse me. I learned some days ago. Coopera Store Valencia is a store. I think the people who works is I don't know what it is. Disminuidos?
Yeah.
Disabled?
Yeah, with handicap.
And they say they do the same. They sell the second-hand clothes.
Really? With people with difficulties?
Yeah, the ones who work there are people also with disabilities.
Really?
And something.
We've never worked on that, but this would be a very interesting idea to try. If in our stores we can create this employment opportunity to people with physical difficulties. In our sorting facility, we have people, but never in our stores. I think this would be interesting. But I'm sure they have to adapt the operation in a certain way. So this is possible. This story is where exactly? Yes. Is it in Barcelona? Like, can we?
No, in Valencia.
In Valencia. That's for.
in-
Okay.
Que són, bueno, no sé, tenen diferències. Okay, yeah, there is a question there. Sorry.
Buenas tardes, muchísimas gracias.
Hi, hello. Hi, hello. Thank you so much for your very inspiring conference. Linking up with what my colleague has just said, I work at Caritas. And in Barcelona, there is an employment office called TIP, Training and Work. And what we do is through clothing, recycling of clothing, we create jobs for people who are under the risk of social exclusion. They can be people who have no documents, no
Económica vulnerable, ¿no? Entonces, yo soy trabajadora social.
immigrants, or people who are very poor. I'm a social worker, and well, I study the cases that this employment social enterprise does. It's called friendly clothing. They collect this clothing. And for example, I can buy a dress. This dress is from there at a very affordable price. And people that we take care of at Caritas, they have a card and they can buy this clothing for free. So if I see somebody who needs clothing, I can give them a voucher and they can buy any piece of clothing they can buy. And they have that experience. They can choose any piece of clothing they want without needing to worry about the affordability of it. And I know of this experience in Barcelona, which I believe is very interesting. And there are conference lectures and contacts in the net. And I think it would be very interesting for you to know how they have done this employment insertion experience.
Definitely, very interesting. Is this something that I have only tomorrow in Barcelona, so I would love to visit those places. But I also want to visit the church.
Yeah, but do you see, we have an amazing audience. You know, I mean, I want to congratulate Iemet and Club de Roma because, you know, any example we mention someone, it's there, you know, it's here, you know, it's working. So I think I ask for anyone else who is also, you know, involved in this field to share experience and story, because I think this is really rich, you know, like, because we knew Humana, we knew about Caritas, but knowing this, you know, you need to come from Lebanon, so we know more about our experiences here, you know. It's very interesting. So is there anyone else that want to share something, question, reflection, experience? No? Okay, if I ask you to send like a message to say, or, you know, or recommendation, a proposal, an offer, anything, what would you tell them before leaving?
Yeah, exactly from what we heard. This is what we are trying to resolve. Clothes and affordability and the textile issue is a massive problem, and people in Valencia, Caritas, Humana, all of those entities are doing a lot, and a lot of different initiatives to resolve the issue, and still all of us combined, we have barely tapped into resolving the issue. It's such a massive problem, and it requires attention, it requires capital, talent, and creative and innovative approaches to solve it in different ways, in different geographies, adapting to the actual needs of every market. I just hope that people here will leave inspired to take care of their own closets, starting with the impact that you do, and to support those initiatives, to go to those stores of Humana, of Caritas, to either donate or buy and become a customer to those stores, or even if maybe one or two people here can start their own initiatives and contribute to the much needed innovation that this industry really, really needs.
sports. I don't dare to say anything else. Okay, so thank you so much for coming. We're sure that it's been a really inspiring session. So hope to see you in the next one. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.